when my dad not feeling like he could get out of the weeds, because we didn't have the structure there. You're not going to be able to let go until you have the confidence and you can, and the trust. Trust is the biggest thing.
It's huge.
So when you can have the philosophy of getting people that are strong, that know what they're doing, that are aligned to your core values as a company, that's been the biggest thing.
All right, Dan, you just let us know when we're good to go, buddy.
We're good to go.
We're good to go?
All right.
All right, cool. I'm here with Joni Odum.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming to our little studio here in person.
Yes,
we
thank
appreciate
you.
it. I know it's an extra step. You mentioned before camera time that you have done a previous podcast, but it was virtual.
It was virtual. So this is great. I love being in person. There's no energy like being in person.
I agree with you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. We're excited to have you.
Yay.
So let's just start at the beginning. Anybody that doesn't know who you are, we'll do a brief description of yourself. But then what I like to do is we're going to go back in time and we'll start back as you as a little girl. Okay. And we'll kind of take the ride to where we are now.
Peel back some layers. Okay.
Yes,
I'm ready.
yes.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right. So early childhood, where did you grow up and stuff like that?
So I am originally from Houston, Texas, born and raised. And so much of me is still there. It's true when they say you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of her. I am still so much a part of Houston. And so I grew up there. And we have a family of 4, my sister and I, and just amazing parents that really fostered not only an entrepreneurial spirit in the household, but just loving and caring, and really just a focus on allowing us to grow up and just be who we are, our authentic selves and find our way. And so I grew up there and then ended up going off to college in Virginia and spending time there, and then deciding that I wanted a path kind of in the financial industry. And so I ended up being a part of a leadership development program right out of college at J&J. So that's what actually brought me here to where I live today, which is in the Philadelphia region. Is that I went through that program that was in the Northeast, and I met my husband, who I'm happily married to of the last 20 years, and then I had 3 beautiful children, 17, 15, 12. It's so hard to believe they're that old, because I feel like they're still, that we just had them. 3 children and a business owner today.
Yeah.
So that's who I am today.
And that's, it's funny because that was exhausting to talk about. You think about wow, I did this, I did this, I did this, I have a family, and it's a lot, right?
It's a lot.
But guess what? Your energy is excited. You're all excited about it. So that's great.
I mean, I'm doing what I love. And,
man, that's huge.
So
that's everyone write that one down. Do what you love. Let's start there.
Listen,
right?
And
that's underestimated a little bit.
It's 100%. If you do what you love, watch your heart start beating.
Yeah.
So it's real. That is the realest thing. So I think that's what I think I'm most passionate about and driven around. And so I'm trying to tell the kids that all the time. Focus on what you enjoy. Yeah. Well, right now, make sure you do the algebra, the geometry, whatever it is you're asked to do. You may not love it, but it's the balance with doing what's required so that you demonstrate excellence, and you demonstrate hard work and what that can bring. But then also make sure you save a little bit of time. That was my mom. My mom was really impactful. Her ability to keep me balanced. So I'm always trying to kind of impart some of that with the kids. Leave a little room for doing what you love and trying to establish what that looks like.
Yeah. I love that.
It's helpful later.
That.
For sure.
So growing up in Texas, so was your dad, he started the company, which we're going to get into, but was that something that you grew up and he already had that going, or were you
Good question. Yeah. So he was, my father, being the entrepreneurial spirit that he was, he always had some business going when I was as a child. And so by the time I was 10 years old, that's when he developed Firstline, which is the business that I lead today. But he was in the hair, and it's a hair care products company. So we're on the accessory side of the business. And so it's no liquid items. It's all accessory based: brushes, combs, sleeve caps, and such. But years before that, he was kind of established as somewhat of a pioneer on the liquid side. Only he was on the services side.
Okay.
So he helped create a space for items like, I don't know if you're all familiar with products like, or hairstyles like Jerry curls and all these styles from the way. Some of these we wish to forget, like, but these were all very trendy. They were on trend back then. They were new and fresh. And so he helped many of those brands that were pioneers on establishing, distribution in, at retail. He helped get them on the map. So he helped to, he helped to expand those businesses. And so he was on the sales side. He was like the marketing arm for those companies. So he had salespeople, field merchandisers that really helped to create a space for them and to broaden. And so a lot of those businesses navigated in the early 80s, and they started doing a lot of that in-house. So they were no longer, looking for brokers to sell, to help sell their products.
They were doing it on their own.
They were doing it on their own. That's right. And so then at that point, he had to navigate and think, and he had relationships. So he decided, and he was in this hair care space. He was a pioneer in this segment. And so he decided that he would produce a product. And so that was when he decided that, there's a void on the accessory side of this business, on the ethnic hair care accessories. This customer doesn't have the tools that they need.
And this was the 80s?
It was the 80s.
Okay.
So Firstline was incorporated in 1986. And that was when he established a couple of core items that were just gaps in the marketplace. And so he decided to create this space and, got distribution, on the planogram and in the stores. And that was, really serving a very underserved market at that time. And so he was really a pioneer on the accessory side of expanding. And during these times, I was 10. And so, I was really little girl. Yeah. And so I remember going into, and I have memories from those days of being, going to the office and seeing, really looking back now at the evolution of starting in it was somewhat of a trailer. My dad had a trailer, that was next to this dance studio. And I remember going in there, just flouncing around as a kid. And even in the building stages of this, probably as an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, but a 10-year-old, it's established, it's well established. There's a customer, and just really thinking about that now, it's just like, wow, just so surreal how we've, gone from, that moment to years later, the business park that we advanced to, that we moved to years later, where I have most of the memories. I hold most of the memories in a place that was like 10 minutes away from there. And then now we've gone even beyond that in recent years. And so just to see the evolution of that is just like, it's really, really wow. But during those moments, Mike, to answer your question, I was working in the warehouses of our facility in the summers. And so I would I would be in charge of packing and folding do-rags and wrap caps and load them in and pack in these acrylic bags. And so that was, what my first real learning, like that was me being in my dad's classroom, so to speak. And, you're going to start, I started right from there. And that's the heart today. That is the heartbeat of our business, is the manufacturing, the shipping and receiving, the warehouse, and what they do there is just, it's the heartbeat it keeps the company going.
Sure.
We can't, get the product out there and to touch all these people that we try to impact every day if we didn't have a team of people that are working at that level, touching the product, getting it to our customer. And so that was that was my first exposure.
Like, so business. Hands-on. Yeah. I love that, because my dad was like that with me. Like, it was like start at the bottom, right? Do the easy stuff.
Yeah.
But like, what a great way to bring your child, maybe like, hey, I wonder if they'll have interest in this. We'll start here. We'll teach work ethic. They'll be surrounded by it. Yeah. And then maybe they catch a bug. Maybe they don't. That's okay if they don't, but you did, obviously.
Yeah, eventually.
But right. So, okay. So that's really, really cool. So, the other part that I find interesting, so your dad is an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Your mom had to be supportive, right? Because this is like risky.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so your mom, was that like hey, whatever you got to do, she believed in him kind of a thing? Or was it a hard sell?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My mom was so, they were really, they had a really dynamic thing going on in those years. they later divorced, and so that part was actually also great learning for me as well. But during those years, my mom was the one that was she was the one that she wasn't as much a risk taker as my father was, but she believed in my dad, in so many ways. She believed.
Huge.
If you don't have that, it's just so.
It's already hard, but if you like your spouse, it's like.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. It's like super, super hard.
It's super hard, and it's super important for them, for your spouse, the one that that you're there with day in and day out to help continue to infuse that motivation. You have to be self-motivated to do all this and to be able to take the downs and the downturns that are inevitable, but to have that person that's there. And so that's what my mom was. Like, she was she was an advocate, just like she was for my sister and I. Like, she was our biggest advocate. She was an advocate for my dad's success in business, and so she was very much in support of it. And she also helped support it financially. She was a teacher, so she helped to infuse some of the investments required of all of this too. Yeah, so she was, so that was super impactful for my dad. Thankfully, it was a friendly divorce, and it was like one that, really, I feel like it gave me the ability to just have a closeness, like, and a very separate kind of relationship with both of my parents.
It's a unique perspective.
Yeah, because in a lot of ways, we did things as a family all the time, but once my parents divorced, I felt like I would, it was very intentional, the time that my dad would dedicate to me, and it would be one-on-one, and versus it being always in the family setting as it was prior. So I feel like I got a little bit extra with that, but it's still, obviously it was still sad during those days when they established that they couldn't do this together anymore, but they were going to still be everything they were as parents to us, and they still traveled. We still went on some exotic vacations after this because they wanted to do things as if they wanted to continue to do things as a family.
They truly put their children first, though.
They truly put their children first, and they didn't want to miss doing some of these these trips, as if neither one of them were willing to say, no, I'm not going to take that. We'll do it together. And then that's so that was really helpful to us, and for me to see growing up, because they're modeling after what I would look for later in life. So it was a pretty good picture.
And that was at what age for you when they
so they split up like maybe a few years before we really took off at Firstline. So but it took them so many years to finalize. So it was kind of, it was like they separated for maybe 4 or 5 years, which gave us time to get adjusted to what this would be. My sister and I. My sister was in college, so I was dealing with a lot of this by myself.
Your sister's older.
Yes, she's 8 years older, and so I was really dealing with some of this, on my own, which is why I got this individual time. A lot of So it was really. The separation lasted a few years, and then it was like finalized when I may have been like 13 or something in those years. Yeah. So
it's but that's that's a tough age for that to happen.
It's tough anyway, but it's like
that's definitely extra tough. I think at that little that teenage.
Oh gosh, I know. It must have been hell for everybody.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So like going back to the early beginnings of the company, you said when we were first established, like what did it like? What does that look like, right? Yeah. So like was it like is it a team of like there's a back office, there's people out in the warehouse working? Like what does that look like?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, it looks like crazy.
Okay.
Because it's like, so during those days, and I'll speak to what it looked like when I got involved, because back when we first established it, there were maybe 3 or 4 people there helping my dad, and it's funny because I have a person she's running our customer service area. She was with my dad so many years ago, like 21 years ago, and she shares things with me that I never knew. That's the sweetest thing. Like I'll sit and listen to her and just want to cry, because she'll share things like, yeah, there was a time when we, you may not have even known this, but we were really concerned about, because my dad, he tried to shelter us a little bit. And eventually I became mature enough to deal with all of it. But during these days I was still young, and they shared with me things like, your dad, we didn't know when we were going to get, that first check from a customer. And so there was just nothing coming in. And I told him, I was like, well, because these people hadn't been paid. They had not been paid. And my dad told them, no, just stop. Just let me she's like, she's telling my dad, I don't know what I should be doing because there's really no work to do at this moment. And my dad told them, don't leave. Don't leave. I'm going to the bank right now. I'll be right back. Just take this broom, take this, Windex, take this, just clean everything up. Just try to keep them busy so that they stay busy, they stay working, they stay wanting to be a part of this.
He didn't want the morale to we gotta do what we can to keep them.
We've got to do what we can to keep them. And then we definitely have to, find a way to make sure that they're paid for their work. So he made that happen. But, that was just a moment where it was just to think back, and then her sharing that, I believed in it. I believed that we would find, we would overcome this. He believed it, so he made us believe it. And so that's just the spirit that's
leadership.
It's leadership.
That's
that it's
high
best.
level leadership.
It
because
is.
That's things are hard. And that's when you really can, that's when you see what people are made of. And wow, your dad, he's like, I'm going to go to the bank. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the bank.
We're going to figure it out.
We're going to figure this out. Don't leave. There's work to be done. And boy, now when I, years later, when I look back, I'm like, we need more people because there's so much work to be done. I can't. It was like our cup is just running over. So years later, years after that, so that was when we first kind of started. And then, years later, because I, during these years, was really kind of wanting to do my own thing. I mentioned that I worked right out of college for J&J, this leadership development program. I was really kind of on my own path. I loved what I saw. I loved what I was doing, the little things that my dad exposed me to, but I really wanted to do my own thing. And they encouraged that. And so I did. And I did it for 5 years, right out of college. And my last rotation, I worked really closely with, I was at J&J. So it was like a, time at Neutrogena, time at, working on beauty brands, working in pharmaceutical, global strategic marketing, and just being able to see all these different areas of J&J exposed me to just so many things that I thought, okay, there's, I'm getting closer and closer to what I think is going to be where my passion lies. And so my last rotation, I worked on the Tylenol franchise. So basically working with the marketing team on, delivering all these programs and advertisements and such to the market, on Tylenol. And I thought, this is what intrigues me. This is what's exciting for me. This is what I really want to do.
So the marketing aspect. Bringing it to the market of how we're going to do that.
Exactly. Okay. And so then that's when I left, and that's when I decided I'm working for you, Dad. And then I felt like, and we both felt like I had gone out there and learned so much that I could really bring back to the business. And so it was an adjustment at first because, and this is what brings me to your original question of what was that like? Like how many people were involved? What did it look like? Because I was coming from J&J and everything was so macro. And then now it's so micro where anything I touch, I have to wear all these different hats, and anything you touch is just so impactful. It will, positively or negatively impact the business. And so it was just so different coming from what I did there to having this little piece of something to this, because it was only me. I was the one, he put me in charge of. This is when we chose the lane of we'll be the innovators in this space. We had a couple of core items out there where they were basics. This is what the customer needed. This is what they didn't have. And now, working with my dad, having those conversations after 5, Dad, we got to give this customer what they don't even know they need. It's time to really just change the game and to electrify this space, electrify the shelf in what we offer, and give them things that are ahead of the trends, and establish things that, that will wow them, and it really will separate us. And those were the moments that we shared, and that's what we did. And so I had to wear that hat, and then doing that and then developing new, a lot of newness, and being a core focus. It then allowed me to wear the sales hat of going in and expanding our footprint. And so getting into more doors, getting into, Target and CVS and Kroger and all these new spaces that we had not penetrated. And now, into some international markets.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's truly amazing.
Yeah. It's
oh my God, there's so much to unpack in everything you just said. That
was a lot. I'm
sorry.
Well,
no,
it's
okay. It's impressive. It's impressive.
Thank you.
So I I guess maybe not intentionally you did this. So when you were going to school, you didn't necessarily want to work for your dad at the time. You like had this path you were kind of like
Yep.
attracted to, right?
Yep.
But after being exposed, you realize, oh my God, I just learned all this stuff. I
Yeah.
can go implement this and do my thing
Yeah.
with this information I have
Yep.
to make it my own. And then
Yep.
it like boomerang back.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
really probably also helped. I'm sure your dad was thrilled that you were
Yeah.
doing this, but
Yeah.
like, it sounded like you I don't want to say reinvented, but it was like it was like 2.0 now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like of the company.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so like for him, like he created this from nothing, like from scratch. So he was just like, he was a founder, And so here I am coming in and with a similar spirit with my dad and really kind of wearing a visionary hat as well, but in a different way. Like he saw the opportunity to be in a space that wasn't there, that was a void and for an underserved market. And then for me, it was like my focus was on on that customer and what they really needed. And so yeah, I think we've gone through so many different stages of growth where that was a stage and now we're in a brand new stage.
Wow.
So it is.
That's business. It's innovation, right?
Yeah,
Like your company
yeah.
has to continuously
to.
innovate, and you said something really important earlier, like trying to stay ahead.
Yeah.
We gotta like show the customer what they don't even know they need.
Yeah, yeah.
And thinking of that is hard to do. Like even to realize you need to do that.
Yeah.
But two, it's like, wait, now we have to do that. What is the product?
Right,
How do we even
right.
do the research to like?
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, if we can get tactical for a second, because
Yeah.
it's super intriguing, the
Sure.
marketing aspect. So, how do you? What is that process like when you said, hey, we got to show the customer
Yeah.
what they don't even know they need? What does that even mean? Where was your head at? What were you thinking? And how did you like, or maybe give us an example of something that you did that
okay. Yeah. So now it's funny because one item that we have that launched, it's been about 12 years ago now. It's one example of this where, and I was explaining earlier, someone asked me recently about like what our process is for innovating. And so what we typically do, because it's you want to get the feedback and thoughts from everyone in the organization that touches the consumer, that cares about this, because it may not be this, this amazing idea that, that changes the game, but it's a building process. So it could build upon other ideas. And so you want to get every, leader in the room to share and to infuse all of this, knowledge about the customer and different trends that they see, people that are closest to it. And so we do that. Really, we have a big one once a year, but then we're doing it throughout the year in a very informal way, whether it's sharing via Teams or text. We do it throughout the year when there's just an idea or a thought. But that big meeting is super impactful to get everyone in a space to think about it. But what I find more recently is that everyone is different. Like everyone is going to be inspired in a different way. And so it's really critical for me as a leader to figure out how best can I put this team in an environment that gives them the most, free flowing of creative thoughts and ideas. And it may not be that it's always in this setting where you've planned, you've organized around the day, you've got this agenda and everything's so structured. Well, it doesn't always come that way. My biggest ideas, so the one that I mentioned from 12 years ago, it didn't come from a setting like that. Like it didn't come from, this big meeting that was planned and just everybody was on time and we all had our breakfast and we had our icebreaker activity. It didn't really come from that. It came from a talking to moms. I had, some friends over and we were talking about the idea of, edges are really important, particularly for women and men, mostly women who care about this because we care about, edges frame your face. And so for women with textured hair, this area of the hair tends to get like really, it can get like if you've straightened it like I have today, like my hair is naturally curly most days when I wash it and go. But when I get it blow dried, And then I go out into a humid day like today, or if a little bit of rain or any humidity touches it, then it reverts to that curl.
Okay.
It reverts to the curly pattern, and that may be a great look when I'm wearing it natural and curly, and it's perfect. But when it's straight, then it's just like it just messed up my whole look. And so I was talking to moms about this, and decided in these conversations that we just talking. It was unplanned. It was just us having a cookout, and just and I'm thinking, what do you all do? Like, what do you do when you have a need to maintain your edges or to smooth your edges? And we're just going back and forth. And then I woke up the next morning, and it comes to me generally either late at night or first thing in the morning, where I pop up and I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was the birth of the edge brush. And typically it's our edge brush. It's like, when you look at it, it looks like one side looks like a toothbrush design.
Did you bring it with you today?
You know what? I don't think I did. That would have been a good idea.
Yeah, it's okay. All right.
It's a toothbrush design on one side, and then it has a comb on the other side. And so it really is, it's small enough tool to cater to that very delicate area of your hair, your edges. And so it was the birth of that. I had to first, I talked to my marketing team to figure out, how can we separate this from a toothbrush? It cannot look like a toothbrush.
Right.
It will not have the price points of a toothbrush.
You just refer to it as a toothbrush yourself.
Right, exactly. And so it cannot be that. And so that was the first big thing, was like determining how we will make sure that this is, it's that we make a distinction between a toothbrush and this. It has to have features. We had a brainstorm about that, and then determined what that would look like. And then they did a sketch of exactly what was in my head. Then I had to meet with suppliers to make sure that that manufacturing side of this was exactly what I needed. So our supply chain would develop this, and after several iterations of it, it went to market within 6 months. And that item has really revolutionized the way women manage their edges. And so that was the first tool of its kind. And now I see them everywhere I go. I see them everywhere I go. I look and I'm just like, wow.
All this from a cookout.
All this from a cookout. Exactly. It's true. It's so true. So yeah, inspiration can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
If you let it.
Yeah. And it's a lot. So if you want to be creative, I think you're right on, right? Like, get into a creative space, which is typically not a structured work environment.
Yeah. Not
I'm with you there. So I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little bit deeper, because it is super intriguing, because this is not my business at all. It's very different from what I do.
Yep.
I'm buying products, right, for my homes and stuff, but you guys are developing products.
Yeah.
So when you say you went to your marketing team, how does this process work? You get the idea.
Yep.
You go to your marketing team. They help you what? Like draw images of this? How does how do we start to make this tangible then, so that you go to someone? How does that work, if you don't mind?
Yeah,
a little bit deeper.
I love these questions. No, so and it depends on the type of item it is. So for something that's a hardline item like that, we would have to create a sketch. So my marketing team have designers that can, even in these brainstorming sessions, if I throw out an idea and I'm like, this is what I'm visualizing in my head, and I'm trying to, I'm conceptualizing this, and they literally have the ability to create exactly what is in my head. They're creating a sketch on this technology, and then they're like, is this it, Joni? And I'm like, no. That is not it. Or yes, that is exactly it. Okay. So that's what we do today. But back then, when that product was developed and conceptualized, I had to get a designer that was a contractor that created exactly, I had to explain everything. So this is what it looks like. These are the measurements. This is what it has on this side. Then we wanted to have a comb on this side. Drafted it with the measurements, and then I had to meet with our manufacturer and had to do that exact same thing, send them exactly what this looked like, and then they had to go through different, they had to create a mold for it so that I could first confirm the mold before we begin. And we have to invest in that.
Yeah.
Invest in, the investment of the materials, for this particular item, it was boar bristles, for the brush. It was, plastic. So there were a lot of raw materials that went into the development, but from a manufacturing standpoint, it's telling them how much of all these elements we would need and to make it what it needs to be and to make it the high quality that we always want to put into our products. And so that they kind of meet that. And then, because we didn't want to just throw something out there because it was this great new idea that hadn't touched the market. We wanted it to actually work.
Sure.
So we then go through testing. We have them go through all these iterations of what it should look like. And I'm confirming this is it, finally. And then can you make this many, for us? And then that's when we sample it to test, get people's feedback. And and that's that's really, kind of how it goes.
Really, really cool. I mean, people go to a store, they buy something, but a lot of people aren't thinking about, all that
goes into it. That's so true. It's a lot.
You walk around, you're probably like, oh man, I can't imagine. That was probably this.
That was complicated. Right.
you know the backstory.
Yes.
So as the company grew, from you coming back, let's back up a little bit because you said you worked for Tylenol.
Yeah.
Okay. So big companies like that, what do you think are some of the key things you learned that were like eye openers for you of like how a company operates, how they market, stay true to brand? What are some things maybe you felt like you learned that were like highlights for you?
There in that kind of environment?
Like in that environment, then because you went off in that section working for these, J&J and all that stuff. Yeah. So like, what did you think you learned there that you took back with you to?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things was processes, having a process around things. Because when you're a small business, and my dad did not embrace that. When I came back, and I was just like, no, Dad, we need to be structured. We need to, follow a process, and so that we don't, miss any steps and all. And he's just looking at me like, who's doing all this? Is a small business. We're in a different environment than, a big J&J. But I'm like thinking so process oriented at this point, because that's what everything we did followed a process at a company like, a Tylenol franchise. So it was really hard to get my dad, like that was definitely a bit of back and forth for my dad and I. And so he really challenged that. And then I challenged him on that. And we did eventually start, taking things through more of a process, but it never, got to the point. So I had to find a middle ground with, okay, we're a small business, so we're not going to be able to, some of the excitement of being in a small space like this and being, not this huge conglomerate is that we can move and turn the boat around faster. We have the agility and speed to take things to market when we see a trend, and or to get things out there fast when we see something that's up ahead. When a larger company, they're going through all these long processes and all these levels of leadership and hierarchy that it will take them beyond a year to get. So we don't want to be there, but we don't want to move so fast that we went through some years where we threw stuff, so much newness and ideas out there. We didn't get to properly test them. And so we learned that, okay, yeah, we do need to, there's some steps we can't miss. So like we do have to take some things through a process. So I think it helped, me having that experience and then hearing, my dad and where his thoughts were on it, with both of us compromising somewhere in the middle with, we're going to take a little bit and a little bit of this and a little bit of that to get the sweet spot that we need so that we can be, dangerous in the market.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
So so I can get that. So I started working with my dad when I was a kid, and I had all these other ideas of like new stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he would look at me like I'm crazy, and we should be doing this, and why are we not doing that? They're doing this. I don't understand why we're doing it this way.
Yep.
But
it's so hard.
It's a challenge.
It is.
It
is a challenge because they're looking at you like, I taught you everything you know.
Yeah, I know.
You're
Look at you coming in here, and
So that's the hard part. It's like
you're hard to sell the date, right? Like,
yeah.
It's like,
and I was a daddy's girl too, so it's just like, oh gosh, I'm not a daddy's girl in this in this office.
Yeah, we're in the arena now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
So you have the older sister. Is she involved in the company as well?
She is. So she's not as involved. Like she doesn't have a huge role. She's not in the day-to-day operations.
Okay.
So she doesn't have a role in the company in terms of she's a vice president. So she's like on the board.
Oh, okay.
And she's on my leadership team. She's very good with strategy and ideation. And so she'll get involved with big things that she and I talk daily about things when it comes to working on the business.
Got it.
But not, in the day to day. And so she's actually, we went to the same college, but then she went to law school. So she's actually, but then she decided that she wanted to go into writing. So she's a writer. Cool. She does a lot of our, she does a lot of our editing. She'll edit our press releases and write things that we need, edit all of our packaging. So that she does on a regular basis.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's cool though. So you still have that family connection.
That dynamic is there
in the company still. So what does this company look like now today? Like, you don't have to tell me every little thing, but how many people are involved in the day-to-day operation of the business?
33.
Okay.
33. So we're still it's like, I like to say that we're small, but we do big business, Yeah. So it's like we're a pretty small knit group, and we're growing I just hired a couple of new people in the last month. So we're growing so much, but I like to say that I want to keep us kind of, a certain size a size that makes sense.
Okay.
And right now, I think, I think that we're in a comfortable space of being able to deliver with the next stage of growth that we're seeing.
Okay.
So, yep.
It's intriguing what you're talking about right now, because I think everybody gets confused. Sometimes bigger is always better.
Yeah.
And not necessarily.
Always.
And it also needs to align with your goals. I think some companies, and look, I'm a believer, if you're not growing, you're going backwards. True. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to go from 33 people to 66 people. And that's not always the case.
That's not always the case. And sometimes it's being smart, or sometimes
it's a lot of the times the right answer, right? There's a lot of companies that can't manage the 33 and then they want to go to 66, but you can't even manage the 33 people that you have right now.
That's right.
So you're not going to have a business.
Right. That's the scary part. Exactly.
Yeah.
We just actually, one of the biggest things in the last year that I've done is implementing a new operating system. And that operating system alone, I feel, is just going to make people work more productively. Okay. They're just going to have so much clarity in what their day-to-day looks like, what their core objectives should be each quarter. And so I just feel like we're going to make people's lives more, just simpler. They're going to understand, okay, these are the core focuses. This is what I need to be working on this quarter. Anything else outside of this isn't what I should. This is what's going to drive the business by the time we get to year end, is these things. And so I feel like that alone is going to make, us be able to see, is 33 enough? Is 33 going to get us to what my 5-year goals are, what my 1-year goals are? That will be great intel for me. Once this operating system is fully implemented, it's that kind of thing that you do first before you go doubling your staff,
it's more strategic what you're talking about. It's like actually you're looking for the answer to say, do we need to keep multiplying, or does it not make sense?
Yeah.
I have a goal of X amount of revenue, right? What does that look like? Reverse engineering back to what's the output of the team now?
Exactly.
And it's important. I think
important.
A lot of business owners, like even me, I fall into the trap of you get caught in the grind that you don't do the high level thinking like that.
It's so hard not to.
It's
so hard not to. And that's the stuff, because when you plan your, the year and, and the 5-year goals, you're looking at what really matters, because sometimes we get caught up doing stuff that's not really driving the business. And that's activity that we shouldn't really be paying people to do. Yeah. But when you go through, implementing something like this, it makes you see that, okay, if you do these things, this is what's really going to take us there. And that was the hardest part. What you just said was getting out of the weeds of being in the day-to-day. It's so hard. My dad talked about it all the time. And so I was super conscious of, he talked all the time about, I can't get out of the weeds. I'm always in, and so he's like, I never can focus, on the business. And so that was one of the things that I tried to do from the beginning, was to dedicate time every week to getting out not being involved with with the team and in meetings, but just looking at on the business. And that's when I decided stuff like implementing an operating system, assembling a leadership team, just stuff like that. It's
You
when
allowed yourself the time.
you see things from a different lens
Sure.
when you're not in it and you're looking on it.
Yeah, yeah. It's I deal with it daily myself,
Yeah,
right?
it's
And
hard.
it's so funny when you do take the time, all these high level ideas start popping out, and it's so funny. It's like that's that rule that 20%.
Yes,
You know what I mean? Really
yes.
drives 80% of everything else, and
That's
it really is the
true.
truth.
My gosh, every time I hear that, I'm like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something I started trying to implement
Uh-huh.
is this like it's like a breakdown of like, so instead of the 80/20, it's like a what is that, 10, you're like involved in the first 10% and the last 10% of something, and let the team do everything else in the middle.
I
So
like
it's still the
that.
same mathematics that we're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
but like
I like
I
that.
recently was watching a podcast, and that was like this entrepreneur's like opinion of like, yeah, try to be involved in that first 10% because it's your thing.
Yeah.
And you got to make sure it's off to the right deal.
Yeah.
And then the team's got to do that 80, that the rest of it there, and then you come back in and you put your finishing touches and make sure your vision
I
is,
like
and
that.
I'm like,
Yeah.
isn't that cool? That's a cool
That is a
way.
good one. I'm going to start using that one. I really like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
The
So like
first 10 and the last 10.
yeah, like, because if you think about it, right, it's your company, your vision,
Yeah.
right? So the most important parts for you are the beginning and the end, right?
It's very true.
So I don't have this all figured out, by the way.
But I like it.
As Matt McConaughey would say,
good
I'm not
tip.
getting straight A's, but like
Neither am I.
yeah, but I don't know. I feel like from a leader's perspective, it's a great way to look at your company. So
That's very good.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
Good stuff. Good
But
nugget.
yeah, but like finding that time, like you said, it's super important to have that clarity.
Yeah.
And I think even for me, like some people struggle thinking like, well, I'm not working, like I'm not doing that grind. And sometimes like I'm telling you my perspective
Yeah.
of how I would make me feel. I was like, oh, I'm not on the job. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And I feel like I'm not actually doing the work.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm like more like your dad. There's a hard like, oh man, I can't get out of the weeds
Can't
because
get out
like,
of there.
and even when I want to, then I'm not, then if I do, I'm like, I feel guilty that I'm not in the trenches.
Same. I have that too.
You know,
I have that same. Yeah, it's a guilt. It really is, and that's why it's hard to because especially if you're someone who likes to lead by example.
yeah,
Then you just want to to be there hands on and get your hands dirty wherever needed. But now when I stepped out of it enough, now I see how I can impact those same people and those same departments in a different way that impacts them even greater. So that's the only thing that's helping save me from not wanting to get, because I still have days where this week where I was involved in things that I'm sure that team members were like, oh God, she's
her outta here.
Again. She's
Get
here
her outta
again.
here."
She's here again.
get out of here.
I mean, it's just right. It's the way it goes. But over time, I think that it'll become more and more balanced.
Yeah.
That ratio of in the business and on the business,
Yeah.
will be more balanced.
So you're CEO, is that like the title? And so what other leadership roles do you have in your company that are super important that you feel like I have this, I have this, I have this? What's that look like?
Yeah, like within my team.
Yeah, like
so-
under
yeah.
you. So you're the CEO, and
Yep.
managers under you, whatever their titles may
Yep.
be.
Yep. So I'm president and CEO. Then my sister being vice president is impactful it's particularly from strategy and just having someone else that with that ownership, because she and I own the business together, and so at the end of the day, we want to be fully aligned on many things. But she's aligned on the idea that from the business standpoint of how we're going to go to market and such, then I'm running that ship. And so beyond vice president, I have a leadership team that's so super important that I rely on, and this is helping take me out of the weeds too. I have a person on my team that runs the marketing side now, and that was what was so important about that was that I had to replace myself, and I had to replace myself. After my father passed, and I was kind of during those years that he was living, I was kind of those last 5 to 10 years, I was kind of the second in command. so to speak, but I was leading our, marketing, innovation, and really a lot of the sales efforts. And so having to replace me over there was really, really hard. And so we're doing that with a few key people, with a leader over sales, marketing, and customer service. I had to focus on that over these last 4 years, making sure that I had key people that I trust, that can, that can do it better than I could.
It's like the hardest part.
It's the hardest part. And so I feel like we are almost there.
Wow, that's
we
good.
are almost
Good for
there.
you.
And then on the accounting and finance side, and then on the logistical side, supply chain side as well. So having those 5 people dedicated to these key functions, it was really about putting a management structure in place.
Okay.
Over the last few years, it was like, we need structure and we need leaders, so that, because that was part of it, is like when my dad not feeling like he could get out of the weeds, because we didn't have the structure there. You're not going to be able to let go until you have the confidence and you can, and the trust is the biggest thing.
It's huge.
So when you can have the philosophy of getting people that are strong, that know what they're doing, that are aligned to your core values as a company, that's been the biggest thing for me in this, in implementing this operating system. It's also been establishing our core values, like what our purpose is at the company. It's really reaching people, having our product touch so many people out there, and to allow them to feel beautiful, look beautiful, and to be their authentic selves.
Yeah.
Well, we need people in our organization that echo that and have a passion around that in their key functional areas. And so, but then we're also needing people, like when our hiring process, it's not about just like, do they meet the job skills necessary? Do they have the experience? Do they, do they have the ability to, if it's sales, communicate effectively or whatever? It's about those things. They're still important, but it's about, are they results driven? Can they be accountable? Can they be? So it's like we're really leading with our values now more than we ever have. And I feel like that's what's making this and creating a structure better, and that's what's alleviating, the pressure of me feeling like I need to be involved. You're aligned with this. You're aligned with our vision. You're aligned with what my purpose is here. And you have the ability to collaborate, and you want to hold yourself and your team accountable. So I can be a little more hands off, and I can exhale.
Yeah.
And I can work on the business and not be in your department every day.
Yeah.
So
well, it's having that, because you jumped right into my next question was going to be like, how do you go about like hiring people to bring into your company? Right.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like everyone I think I've ever hired, it wasn't even the skills. I wasn't even looking at the skill set. I mean, it's so important, right? It's super important, but it was a type of people. It's the people, because I'm like, we can learn this, and it might take some time to get around this, that, but like I can't teach them integrity, honor, accountability, and a positive attitude. Because I mean, when things are tough, those values and those personality traits, I feel, are like what keeps, like that's like the glue.
No, and you said the magic statement. We cannot teach. Like I don't even like to look at, like I just was interviewing someone like a couple of weeks ago. I didn't even look at the resume. I didn't look at it. I just said, you know what? I just need to talk to them, and I just need to see the kind of person that they are, because those are the things, because all the other stuff that's a part of this job description and the role, we can teach them.
Yeah.
But these other things, we just can't teach it. And I realized and that was the hardest part for me in this role when I got to this space, was establishing that and realizing there were some people in the organization that didn't fit our culture, the culture we were growing into.
Company,
And so then they were people that had been with us a while. They were a lot part of the legacy, but they, and I cared for them deeply, but I care for this company deeply too.
Wow.
And if it's a misfit where they're not really naturally exhibiting these qualities, and it's going to constantly be a battle within themselves and for the company, that if you can't meet this and be who the company needs you to be. So that was really hard.
That's super hard.
So it's super hard. It's super hard to kind of disconnect yourself from all of that, that you may have had in those relationships for years with here's where we're going, and this is who we are today. So, but it's so important. You can't, those are things you can't teach. And so now we're hiring with that, we're rewarding with that, we're evaluating with those same principles.
Yeah. That's amazing. Because I think a lot of companies struggle with that, and as a company innovates and morphs, right, and like you said, our culture and where we're going, sometimes the people that got you to where you are don't necessarily mean they're going to be the people that get you to where you're going.
No, it's true.
And it's hard because on a personal level, like you care for these people and they're not bad people, right?
Yeah.
But like you built something that, well, your father started that you helped, right?
Yeah.
That's bigger than you now.
Yeah.
So that's a huge responsibility.
It is.
And separating the feeling aspect of like, I have to do
this. Yeah. And you don't do it just like you first try. You try to, with coaching, you may, get a coach for them or, these trainings.
Yeah.
But then you learn that you can't teach this stuff. It's just a part of who they are.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that, as much as I may want it for, these people, that has to be a part of them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
So we're talking about culture. Culture is like a very important aspect of a company, sometimes underestimated, as I'm learning now. And I'm researching, and I do a lot of like reading and studying of other businesses and, other leaders that I'm attracted to. And the commonality, culture, that word comes up so often, right?
So often.
Yeah. So it sounds like in more recent years, like you're really taking that serious of like the culture of the company, what we're about and where we're going.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I joined a business group. It's been about 4 years now. And that was a big part of our discussion and most of our kind of like our leadership sessions. We have these executive sessions regularly. And that, some of the training that we have and some of the discussions always touch on culture. And I just felt like, this is pretty big. Like this, most of what we deal with, culture is a big part of it. Huge part of it. And definitely underestimated. And my dad wasn't super focused on that because he's building, something from scratch. And so at that time we didn't have, such a team this big. And once you get a good number of people, really, I don't care if it's 5 people or 3-person team. You want them to be aligned with your vision and your culture.
Right, sure.
But the more people you have, it just makes it even more important to establish that and to make sure everybody's aligned and amplifying those.
Yeah. Yeah. So the company itself, is it still based physically in Texas? And you live here in Pennsylvania. So what does that look like for you? You're not there.
Right. I know.
Let me just drive over real quick.
Right.
That's I
can't just pop up. Right. I could.
You could. They're like, please don't. But,
please don't. But
yeah.
You know what? It's funny because I was traveling there every 2 weeks at one point before the pandemic. I was traveling there, not as often, when my father was alive. But as soon as he passed away, I was there every 2 weeks until the pandemic. And the pandemic really forced us to get a lot of technology in place. Yeah. And then structure.
Sure.
Structure. So my dad was very kind of old school with like butts in the seats at 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. And so I have kind of a little bit of a different philosophy around that, where I'm really more results driven.
Okay.
Where obviously I want you to do the job, but I'm not really necessarily as worried. I just want to make sure you're doing the work.
Yeah.
So wherever you are.
Yeah.
So the structure began with just making sure. Well, first we got the technology in place because it's the pandemic and we're all virtual for quite a while. And that helps to me not to feel as much a need to go in as often. It became maybe more once a month. And then I'm traveling to so many other cities doing different things with customers and different things. So it just felt like once a month was okay. But having more structure in place with what was required of each person's role made it where it's not about being in a seat. Like you could be in a seat from 8 to 5, but are you productive? Like, are you doing
usually not, honestly.
Right. I know.
There's a lot of wasted space.
There is. There really is.
Yeah.
And so that's how it came about. It was just like getting technology in place. We started using Teams for a lot of video calls. And then we did go back. Now we have a hybrid model. So 3 days a week in and 2 days a week from home. Mm. And I like it because we've dedicated 2 days. Everyone's in the office those days. Because what I didn't want was people to go into the office, they choose their day, themselves, and then they're in the office talking to people virtually.
Yeah.
Where it's like, let's get that ability to collaborate. If we're going to choose, what day we're in, let it be 2 days that everyone's there, and then the department, they can all choose based on making sure there's coverage from each department that third day. That's kind of how we do it.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is something to like, why unnecessarily have people show up, but they don't have to. But at the same time, you don't want to lose that. Like you said, it's nice being here in person. There's something about the in-person connection.
That.
So it's important, especially when you have a bigger organization, like to get together.
That's true.
I don't know. There's that energy. There's something about the energy. Like you can't. I don't even know what you want to call that. Maybe it's synergy. It's like
synergy.
So
you can't duplicate that on a screen.
No, you can't. You can't.
With our customer too. Like we found, during the pandemic, we had all of our reviews. In our meetings with our touches with our customer, they were all virtual, and it's just you can't shake your hand, you can't touch the samples. It's just very hard to try to give them everything that they need, the essence of all of this, like across a computer screen.
No, absolutely.
So we were so happy to be able to get back face to face on those.
I mean, so since you're mentioning about like going to see your customer, I want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
So the growth of your company, how you're in some big box stores, drop names like Target and stuff like that. Like, how did you even have the opportunity? Where do someone start to say, I would like to pitch my product?
Right.
to be on the shelf at Target. Like, how did you even do that?
Yeah. So once we established the product and we look at it, we talk about like, who's the shopper for this? Like who might this, get the most, beneficial, use of this product. And so we started developing a lot of higher, quality items that we felt, we have our Walmart shopper, we have our Sally Beauty shopper. They're all different. Like there's a different shopper in all these different doors. And we established with like, to your point, like Target per se, they're really like a, prestige beauty. Like they're really looking for like that shopper is really coming in the store looking for some unique, at times. I know I can't go there without spending like, $80. I'm just like,
oh no!
I just wanted one thing.
It's $100 or like that's our minimum. Every time my wife goes there, I'm like, what happens in that place?
What happens in there? It's so true. I'm totally with her right now. It's hard. It's so hard not to. So, but yeah, all of our customers have that unique, like it's a unique shopper. So with Target, we decided, we're developing these high quality items that would appeal to this shopper. So, how can we reach Target? And so, so it could happen at a trade show. It could happen, they all have some type of review period where you're able to share, your ideas, your product ideas. And that's when you start the relationship. And that's when it can hopefully down the line award you business.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened with Walmart. And I was young then, so I wasn't as much a part of, so now I'm more a part of the growth that we've, experienced in Walmart. In today, it's that I was younger, and I can recall my dad bringing me. They've changed in so many ways. They've obviously grown. They're like the retail leader, like the giant, right, in the marketplace. I recall my dad asking me if I could come to with him some of the reviews that he had. I was like right out of college, and they required so much like for us to report data like on the performance of our products and our business with them. So he's like, Joni, I need you to come with me. So I would go with him to these meetings to help with some of the reporting that he had to do and some of the new product ideas. Like so so it was funny the kind of the impact that I had in different retail doors, but how we came about and how we began doing business with them. There's a unique story for each of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, if Dan behind the camera came to me today and said, hey, I got a great product, and I was like, you should go pitch that to Target, he'd probably be like, I'm not there, right? But the point is like having that confidence in your product that like you feel like you even deserve that meeting.
That's right.
Like you to do that. I mean, yeah, you could have people that are just good at sales, right, and sell their way into something. But like for it to be sustainable,
Yeah.
you have to be able to do the sales part, but you have to have the product that actually meets their
Yeah. It
expectation.
meets their expectations.
You know, or exceeds.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
you know, look, there's so many different things flying around these days. So like it truly needs to be meaningful.
It does.
And
Yep.
for a
It really
company to
does.
thrive, whether you're selling product or selling a service, I believe your sales are super important, because I do meet some people that they love the product so much, and it may be the best product, but if you don't know how to sell that product,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
No.
It's
No.
like they have to coexist.
They have to.
They really do.
Yeah.
Like
No, it's true.
and you know, I just, it's something I'm always thinking about, right? Like we like, you can't forget about selling stuff, but you also have to make sure that it's what you're selling is truly what you're selling.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. It's 100% true. And once we were able to establish, customers like, those giant, leaders like a Walmart and a Walgreens, CVS, Target, like we were able to then, that has helped us grow into new spaces and new territories, and a little bit internationally, because that's a great story to be able to package. Like we have experience, we have shown operational excellence with Walmart. The highest volume customer that anyone can have.
Wow.
Besides Amazon nowadays, it's like an endless lane, right?
Sure.
But yeah, so that story has enabled us to be able to to grow elsewhere. You take that, and then to your point, you sell it because it's a product you believe in. Then you back it up with, we're able to fulfill with the high volume stores like a Walmart,
Wow.
and so that really helps our story with with being able to reach other areas and penetrate other markets. But it's super important. It has to start with the product that you believe in, and that you know will fill a need.
Yeah. So like, what about maybe like some tactics for another company? Let's just say not your company, advice. If somebody came to you and they're like, I'm really good at product, but like I can't sell nothing. I can't go to those meetings. And so that, do you think it's important to recognize what you're good at, what you're not, and then finding the right people instead of feeling the need like, I guess I just got to do this or that. But if it's truly not your thing, doesn't mean you can't improve on it. But like, why drain the energy?
Yeah,
right inside when there's someone else you should bring in that probably be great at selling it.
Yeah, I know so many businesses like that. Like I have so many business peers that I talk to all the time, and that's not who they are. That's just not who they are. That's not who they are. They're not the sales side of what they're they may be the operational side of it. They're the brain, or that that keeps this thing afloat, that's implementing. It's funny. So I just read this book. This would be a good tactic for a company that's similar to this. Is rocket fuel. This book, it basically guides you through realizing like who you are. Are you the visionary, or are you the implementer? It's like you because if ideally, one of you is a visionary, that's, running the company, the big ideas, in charge of big relationships. Does like most of the time the selling. But then there's this other person that needs to implement and really take all these ideas through a lens, through through something that kind of, because they can't, all these big ideas are not going to happen. I wake up with big ideas every day.
I know, right?
And they are not all good.
You got to get hosed down, right?
You got to get,
we got to water her down. You got to, I know, I get it.
Somebody get her. Because so it's just, someone has to, stop me and stop the, the energy, stop the flow, bring me down sometimes. And that's what an implementer helps to do, is that operational side of, okay. And because some of these ideas are going to be groundbreaking, and then taking those ideas and really building a process around those to carry them out, to execute. They're the executor. And so I think that the person that you're mentioning, that's who they are.
Yeah.
Like they're not the one selling. They're not the visionary that has all this, passion that they're trying to channel and, get out there to reach and touch people.
Yeah.
They're the ones that, and you can't really, it's so hard to do one without the other. You
Absolutely.
need both. You need both. So I would give that, that person that you mentioned, like, make them realize that they are just as important, they're just as important to, to the story, to what ends up being the reality, just because they're not the one that's selling it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think, so Rocky Fuel, I think, I want to read that book. I do know that book. I think the same author wrote a book called Traction.
Yeah.
Gino
Yes. Yes.
Wickman, I
I
think
read
his
that
name.
one.
Yeah,
Yep, I read that
so
one too.
that's a really great book.
So that's the book that had me decide to implement the new operating system.
Wow, amazing.
That Traction
Yeah.
is the one.
Yeah.
So once I read that, I was like, oh, there's no way. And I tried to implement myself. Like I tried to be both the visionary and the implementer. And I did it for a year, but I was like, this isn't working. I need an implementer.
Yeah.
Someone that's not, that can vet all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do both.
It really is hard to do both.
Yeah.
And you also need that balance to be like, well, hold on now.
Yeah.
Bring it back down a second.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you need that. You
Yeah.
absolutely need that.
Yeah.
And so I read that book Traction. I haven't read Rocket Fuel,
like
but I did.
Good.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I'm an audiobook guy, but I do like to also read the physical book sometimes because I'm always all over the place. So audiobooks easier for me. But I was like, man, this book is too tactical to not. I was like, I gotta be writing this down. I'm driving. I'm like doing the voice of my phone. I'm like, I can't do this book audio. Like, it's too hard. It's a tactical book, and like, there's a lot. Like, I was like, oh, I gotta write that down. I'm like, I can't.
I felt the same way.
I'm putting down the audio book, and you need the physical book.
I felt the same way because I did the digital book on where I read Rocket Fuel, but I did the audio for Traction, and I thought I had to like stop and take notes.
Yeah.
In between because it was like, okay, this is gonna be tough to just listen.
I think it's maybe it'd be helpful if you read the book, took your notes, and then you like re-listen to it to like let it set in. I remember the first time I was listening to that book, like it was like chapter 1. I'm like, I gotta get the physical book. This is not gonna work out. But you're talking about really, really important components of having a visionary and an integrator or an implementer, somebody that's actually putting it into place to making it real. Because typically a lot of visionaries have horrible ADD. They're all over the place.
Oh my gosh.
They're amazing at starting things and they suck at finishing things. Like they're great. No one's better than them at starting, but then it's like
you said it.
Someone's got to like.
Oh my gosh. I was never diagnosed, but I feel like there has to be a little bit of that in me.
Every entrepreneur.
There has to be. My dad too.
Sure.
I feel like because I see elements of myself and my dad, and I'm like, that was there. I was reading this like. It was eye-opening because it said that in the book. I was like,
that's who I am. Yeah. And you don't have to apologize
no one told
for it. No one told me. But I think it's just a symptom of like, when somebody's brain goes fast like that, it's hard not to be like, just keep flashing all over the place. Because it's a gift. It can be exhausting.
Yeah.
But it's a gift.
I like
it's
that.
It's a gift. And
an absolute gift.
It really is. It truly is a gift because that's where like some of the best ideas come from for people that are just seeing these big things. They may not have the skill set or the know-how to bring it, but they see it.
Yeah. Yeah, they see what's not there.
They do. They see what's not there.
It's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the company today, it's continuously growing. And I guess like, are you always like realigning your goals, not just for like the growth of the company, but maybe like your personal life too? You have a family. Yeah. You have kids in school. You have a husband. And like, I know Lauren asked you a little bit about the work-life balance thing. Yeah. Maybe we can just talk about that a little bit of like some of the things you do to like, hey, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, right? I'm also a business owner.
So many roles.
Yeah.
And then it's like in all of those roles, I'm like the central part of the household, the central part of the organization. So it's like playing a leading role in so many, areas. And so I feel like I'm still working at it. Like it is still so hard. Like even yesterday, I'm like running from a lunch that I had with a friend in New Hope to then, because I also have great friends, that I adore.
Your relationships are meaningful, and they're work to keep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm running from a lunch to try to make it to my son's 4:00 soccer game. And it's Friday, so, I woke up really early to kind of get my workday done as much as possible. But I still have calls that I'm trying to finalize things with team members on these commutes on the way from lunch and then to the game. And then I stop and I'm thinking, I need to do some store visits. And I run into both Walmart and Target because they happen to be near the soccer game, which makes me like 15 minutes or so late for the game. And it's just like...
Yes.
Because so that kind of thing happens all the time, and then I feel like, oh well, I may have missed, if he started, he was one of the starters. I missed the start of it, but I have to try to give myself a little bit because when I'm not in this role, like 10 years ago, when I was in second in command, I I would have been there right at the start, a few minutes before the game started. But now I have these other core focuses too. And so what I've had to do is give myself a little grace, but to also create moments where and I'm still trying to work at this, where I have one-on-one time, dedicated time with each of my kids, like every few months, like try to build some type of, like, whether it's a dinner where it's just the two of us, or whether we're watching. My middle son and I, we loved Suits. So we're like, okay. And my husband and I, like, we were binging it. And then my son, he started being interested in it. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna binge it. I'm gonna watch it all over again because I loved it so much. So I'm like, that's gonna be our thing. And then my daughter and I naturally find time because we're girls. We go get our nails done. It's like, so it's our organic. And then my oldest, I'm like, okay, we really are into music. So like maybe we do a concert together. So it's like trying to find these moments of just one-on-one time with them, so that I don't feel so bad when I'm 15 minutes late to a soccer game. Sure. And then I also try to be really intentional, just like with the organization where we talk about balance. That's one of our core values, is balance. Like, we want everyone to feel, take your vacation, get rejuvenated on the weekend, manage balance your time, be 100% here when you're here and productive, so that you can be 100% there with your family and whatever leisure. So I'm trying to follow that. I thought it sounded really good when I shared it, but I'm like, these are actually.
I might start doing what I was telling everybody to do. I'll give that a go.
So it's like really trying to introduce this stuff. It sounds really good. So that's what I'm really trying to do, because I find myself, when I'm not 100% there, then it does spill over into, my dinner with the family. Like when something's unfinished, and because I didn't focus 100%, then I feel like I'm still there. I'm still sure. So when I try to make sure there's no unfinished business with the business, then I can be present with the family after 5 on the weekends. And then when I have those moments where I just, I don't get all the way out to Cheltenham, area where I can do store visits in a different market that often. So when I'm there, then I'm going to take the opportunity, but don't feel so guilty, about it. I think that I just have to build enough moments outside of that, so that enables me not to have those.
I think you're giving really, really great advice. I heard somebody, I don't even know who it was, work-life balance, you hear it, that comes up a lot, and I don't think there's no answer that's right or wrong. Like, there's not like, oh no, this is the right. I don't think it really truly exists. But this person made a comment. There is no it's all the same. The balance is within. And I was like, whoa,
that's deep.
I was like, wow. So it's kind of what you're saying. Like, it's figuring out, like, I have to allow myself not to be so hard if I miss this or that, because I'm going to work on this. So it's like having that internal balance. Yeah. Because the outer, what is balance? Yeah, right.
Define it
first.
What
even is it, right? Because like I mean, my God, so many people ask me that question. You're doing this. You're starting a podcast. Are you crazy? You don't even have time to do this other stuff. and to me, but I'm like, you know what? It's all one. And I heard that the other day, and I'm like, it's very true. You have to find. So
like your internal compass.
Because you don't ever want your kids to feel like, oh, I don't have a good mom, but like, she was never present,
That's
like,
terrible.
Because you're never getting that back.
No, that would be the biggest upset
of
life. Like, that is not the end goal here.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it's something, it is hard, right? You're with your family and the phone's going off and you're just like, I have, I want to be respectful of your time, but I have just a few key things I really just want to touch on.
Sure.
Because this is really important. Okay. So your dad started the company. You're working with your dad this whole time, so he passed in 2020. And can we speak to a little bit about that transition? I mean, obviously being your father, the loss is painful.
So painful.
But did you feel an immediate pressure of like, oh, so now it's me, and like dad's not there, so now I'm the person?
Yes, I did, and it was really hard. I mean, thankfully we knew that my dad was declining. It was prostate cancer, and so he had it was 7 years before that, and then we felt like we were in a good space, and then it came back, and then we my sister and I were made. He flew in and told us, and then it was devastating the months before, just to learn this and to learn that there was nothing else they could do at this point. And so, but we just didn't think it was going to happen that fast.
Sure.
So that it happened at the top of 2020,
Which is
before the
already
world shut down.
Oh my God. So that happened, and
My
then the
dad
world
shut down. Yeah, like it was just like, oh my God. So it felt like one thing after another. And so like when he passed away, but part of it, when we look back, it was like, you know what, I'm glad it was before the pandemic, because we were able to really make it a celebration. My dad's funeral services and just all the things surrounding it, we were able to do all the things we would have wanted, and it really gave us the closure that we wanted. Because had it been a month later, we wouldn't have been able to do all of those things, because that things were different.
Sure.
People couldn't travel. It was just, so that we were grateful for, but it was really hard. Me stepping into this space, having to take over leadership, settling my dad's estate, just all these different things, roles that I was playing, and still a mom and a wife and a friend and all these things, but taking over leadership of the company and trying to keep the business afloat. And my dad, he didn't really want the organization to know that that he was declining like this. Like, he didn't want anyone to know. So I was going back and forth from the office to the hospital, and coming back into the office with a smile as if nothing was going on, and talking. And I would receive a call from a nurse saying, you need to come back to does it. And I'm having to look at my team, like, be right back. Everything's good. You got, and just trying to, because this is what my dad wanted. He didn't want. And so, so then once things happened and he passed away, I had to, announce that to the organization. And so now I'm really going through their mourning with them. And I'm trying to be there for them, because they didn't really have the time to process this like I did for the months, prior. And, like my sister and I did. So now I'm kind of, trying to help them heal, because, my dad was so impactful in their lives too. He had hired many of these people,
oh my God,
years
amazing.
ago, many of them.
So they look
had
up
been
to
with
him,
us for
like,
years. He was like a mentor to many. And so I'm trying to help them through it too. And meanwhile, I'm mourning the loss of my dad. My dad and I always had a really close relationship. So it was a gift. So it was just, it is, it really is. It really is. And I'm so grateful for it. But working on the business, and people were telling me, you should take some time. You should, because everyone, all eyes were on me because of the relationship I had with my dad.
Yeah, they knew like how hard this must be for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like they knew that he was like how close he was to me and how much he valued me, in terms of the organization and then just in our lives. And so everyone was just thought that I was just ready to just collapse. And, and I think that because of all those things was the very reason that like it really just gave me fuel, and it gave me it was healing for me just to pour all of that into working on what my dad built, and so it gave me so much.
Probably exactly what he would want you to do
exactly
too, right? Like that's like if he had that last week, I'd be like, go grind it out, go do that work. That's what I want.
Exactly. And so it really made, so it was hard in those few months where I would just get weepy at to hear my dad. He exposed me to so much. We were all music lovers. My whole family were big music lovers, just like my my family today. But my family, like, so my dad took me to my first like real jazz concert and just these kind of things, contemporary jazz, like Boney James and
sure.
George Howard, just all these great instrumentalists. But he, I couldn't listen to a song for a while that like a jazz song because of that. But then it became, as the months passed and the years, it became where it was just like a celebration, in my heart and in thinking about all that my dad did and thinking about how exactly what you said, I'm doing what he would want me to do.
Yeah, so he's like so proud right now.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah. You can feel that.
Yeah.
Like, know it.
Yeah.
You're taking what he started out of the ether of nothing.
Yes.
You worked with him, like we talked about that being a gift, and now you're gonna you're thriving with it. So I mean, and it's
feel good.
But it's great, but it also is taxing. That's hard work, and and there's emotion. There's like so much different stuff involved there.
So much. And some things that I didn't even know that I was watching. My sister always says it's like osmosis. Oh my gosh. Because there were things that I clearly, my dad and I have a very similar personality. So there were things that were clearly, going to be the case. But then there were other things that I didn't know that I even saw, and that helped me navigate through things like COVID and, other challenges that we would face. But yeah, like just being there, being a kid, but, not intentionally watching, but being there enough to know, like, okay, this is what, dad would have done, but this is how I'm going to take some of that, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Wow. As a business owner, I think, we have lots of setbacks. Can you think of a setback that, like, at the time you were like, oh man, to like, it geared you to a better comeback, like because you had this X something happen that was like seemed at the time like, oh, that's not good. Maybe it was a product, maybe it was, it could have been losing your dad. I don't know, but like, can you think of something that happened that came up that was really tough, but if it hadn't come up, we wouldn't have done X?
Oh gosh, yeah, there's so many examples like that. Let me think of which one I would like.
Isn't it funny you just said there's so many examples of that? 'Cause it's like it's true though, right? It's
happen.
true. But like that they're there though to like lifting weights, like that, that force against you, getting stronger, getting smarter, forcing you to do things. Ryan Holiday, there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way that my cousin Joe turned me on to so many years ago, and basically that's what that book's all about. Like those obstacles are there on purpose, and it's how you treat them. I
agree. So I was trying to think if I was going to share one, like a customer related one, or a team related one, culture driven one, but I'll go with the customer. So we had a customer where they were making some changes to the way that their store is organized, the way that their model is. We're both on the general side of the store as well as on like a textured side, where you'll go into a store and they're large enough where you'll see items that are just catered to multicultural, so they're specifically for textured hair. Then you also have opportunity over on this general side. And so we were going through this transition where they were integrating, so there would be only room, there would be limited space, which is already so limited shelf space all the time. Whenever we're selling, we have to make sure it's unique, different, showing differentiation, all these things. So the idea of integrating meant that this was going to be a really big undertaking and a challenge for us, because we're going to lose some SKUs. We're going to lose some shelf space. And so, it felt like, this huge undertaking, a big obstacle that could be a setback in terms of, revenue. And so the way that I wanted to approach it was, okay, we know, what the downside is, but what could this bring? Like, what might this bring to us? Like, so there's definitely going to be some upside. There's going to be some benefit if we can look at this, in all different aspects, not just from a financial perspective, but also from a productive assortment perspective, an optimization perspective, our own inventory space perspective. So really the way that this worked out was we would go into this, conversation with this customer and figure out how to prioritize the SKUs that, we have on both sides, so that we can make a recommendation, a strong recommendation as to what this should look like in terms of what's best for the consumer, what's best for the retail customer. And ultimately, obviously, we have to look at, will this be, a good enough opportunity for us, and at the end of the day too. And so in doing that, it really showed me that, listen, you guys, it's going to be hard. We're going to have to decide some of these won't work. Some of these won't make the cut. But let's look at whether or not these items are, underperforming. It's time really to trim the fat.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
let's trim the fat. Let's optimize our assortment and what we have in stores. Like, do we need all of these items? Yes, there's a customer for all of them. And that's why they've been there. And that's why they've been selling. But are they, at the top? Are they going to be items that are true winners that deserve to be in a unified space that that is really has to be highly ranked and has to be fast moving.
Sure.
And so it really, while that customer was doing that, and it felt like, oh gosh, like we're going to lose, we're going to lose a significant amount of revenue. It's going to be really tough. We're going to have excess inventory here that we've allocated. We've planned and forecasted to deliver upon these items for months. Well, at the end of the day, there's a way to get around that. And there's a way to, and that's a whole different conversation of how we can, how we can get those, out to market and get them out of our warehouse. But it's really enabled us to see that there's going to be obstacles like this. It's going to happen, but there is a silver lining in us being able to have an assortment that is, in this particular store that is, that it's all, everything is top performing. There's no dogs. There's no, everything is a star. Everything is a star. And so it really leverages us to, all these items that we do have that will remain will be amplified. They'll be in a position where they'll be getting more exposure than they ever have.
Yeah.
Because they're in one place where traffic is going down one location. So there's benefits on that side. And so I think that you really taught the team to approach this in a way that, okay, there's gonna be a downside, but what might we learn about this that we can take to to other places that inevitably will do the same thing. There'll be a strategy around this. So now we need to get out in front of it and really, some of our business model may change a little bit to support that.
Sure.
So that's
it's a good example. So it forced you to be very efficient, like like you said, trim the fat, and a lot of times it doesn't happen unless something forces you. Something forces you to.
Yeah, you're right.
It's so crazy. I mean, even I can think of so many setbacks that I've had, and probably 10 just sitting here. But like, but like without them, like it doesn't. That growth, the efficiency, and how you look at things, like we'll have certain building inspectors come through and the building plans are not exact. Like there's always these gray areas. And then these things will come up, and me and my project manager had a conversation. I'm like, this really sucks. But I was like, yo, we learned so much in this situation because we're high level stuff of learning, there's ordinances are always changing and codes are always changing.
Sure.
So like these things happen and they suck at the moment. They sometimes cost me a lot of money, time. But like, what are you going to throw in the towel? No, we're going to figure it out. And now we're better for it.
That's true.
We're better for it.
If we can't, and I feel like if we didn't go through a lot of these obstacles, we wouldn't have gotten here.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that we learned and we grew through.
Yeah.
So I kind of embrace it. If it does suck in the beginning, you're just like,
yeah, it does.
Then you're like, what? It's time to grow. So let's do it.
Yeah. I love that mindset.
Yeah.
So impressive, honestly. Very, very impressive.
Thank
your dad started something, you came in, you helped turn into something else. And it's so cool to see you have your sister that's still involved.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have a great group of people.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
You did a lot of smiling. So like you do love what you're doing. We talked about like how important it is to love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because when things get hard, like that's going to be what kind of gets you through.
Kind of gotta draw. Yeah. You gotta draw it from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So like you're the first guest that actually has a physical product. And so you were nice enough to bring a couple things. We talked about your business, but here's a couple items that someone might even see in a store today walking around, right? So what do we have here? What are we looking at?
So we're looking at, so obviously the company name is Firstline. That's the umbrella. But these are some of the brands that fall within our umbrella and family of brands. Evolve is our ladies line. So there's a full line of brushes, combs, sleep caps, satin wraps. These are some of our fashionable scarves, as well as a braid bonnet for our braid wearers. And then Wave Enforcer is our men's line. And so Wave Enforcer for the confident, strong, smooth man. Also a full line of brushes, combs, and maintenance caps and things. But these are a few of the items that are really on trend right now. It's our lock cap as well as our king's cap. So you see a lot of men protecting their styles now and preserving, their curl or their locks because they're wearing more hair than they ever have. And men's grooming has really it's been a big surge. So these are just a couple of our brands. We also have Cameron's BFF, Sleek, and Dry Sweat that are also in stores. And we can be found at Walmart, Target, Walgreens, CVS, HEB, Kroger, Amazon.
Pretty much everywhere.
And many other doors as well.
Nice. Awesome. And the amount of work that goes into,
oh my gosh,
like even the product itself. Like, so you talked about the model, like what it looks like, the packaging, like everything is a thought.
Everything is a thought. It's so, and I used to be on the packaging of these when I was younger. It's so funny. I know.
We talked about she had a whole modeling career that I didn't know she had.
Right, isn't that funny? Yeah. And now my dad. I remember when I was like 17, my dad was like, "Joni, I'm sorry, but you are no longer the market." I think I was about 20 because I was after college. He's like, "You're not the market. We're looking for 16 and 17-year-olds now."
You aged out of the market at 20 years old. Aged out.
Isn't that funny? So no, this is it.
But Joni, you did so good. This was awesome.
This was great.
I am extremely impressed with you, and you know, you're this is like you're any other, especially you're a female. You know, you're out there, you're grinding, you're doing your thing, and like female entrepreneurs are like a real thing now.
It's a real thing.
It's a real
thing.
We're out here. Yeah, they are. You are, and you're kicking butt and taking names.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate that so much. It makes me feel great, and I just thank you for even thinking of me.
Absolutely. You're like the perfect, like when we have like a little checkbox of like who are going to get on here. You checked a lot of boxes. So
I appreciate that. And I enjoyed. This was fun.
I'm glad you had fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad you had fun, and maybe you feel like you'll leave here and feel a little bit like, oh, I enjoyed that.
I definitely did. You make me want to do more of these.
You should reach out to people. You got an amazing story. You have a lot to teach and a lot to say, and a lot of people need people like yourself talking about this stuff because as an entrepreneur, sometimes we're on this little island. I call it an island. Like it's kind of lonely.
It is lonely.
It's lonely. So it's nice to know there's other people out there that are doing this stuff. So
I love it. And you made it so easy to just really open up and be authentic. So I appreciate that too.
Thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Pleasure.